What's not to enjoy about summer? It brings backyard grilling, outdoor gatherings, poolside hangouts, and plenty of delicious food. Still, if you want to feel your best through the season, there are a few popular summer staples you may want to steer clear of. Few things hit the spot on a hot summer day like a chilled margarita, but this drink comes with an unexpected downside that can be surprisingly serious. If lime juice spills onto your skin while you're mixing or enjoying one, it can react with sunlight and trigger a painful skin reaction that may even lead to second-degree burns. The risk increases if your skin is already damp from sweat or water. Some people may only notice mild irritation, but others can experience blistering or open wounds that need medical care.
It can range from mild rash to significant blistering all over the skin.
So common is this reaction with citrus cocktails that it's often nicknamed margarita burn, though its medical term is phytophotodermatitis. The condition occurs when compounds in limes and other citrus fruits, called furocoumarins, are activated by ultraviolet light, triggering a skin reaction. A few other warm weather foods can also increase sun sensitivity, including dill, fennel, celery, figs, and parsley. While they're far less likely to show up at a pool party than a pitcher of margaritas, it's still useful to know they can have a similar effect. There's a familiar warning at summer cookouts. Skip the potato salad if it's been sitting out too long, since the mayo is supposedly what makes it dangerous. But that assumption isn't quite right, and it's not the real reason to be cautious. In reality, mayonnaise is fairly stable because its acidity helps inhibit harmful bacteria. Commercial mayo is specifically formulated with enough acid to reduce spoilage and limit pathogen growth even outside the fridge for short periods. The real issue comes from everything else mixed into the dish. Ingredients like potatoes are low in acidity and can encourage bacterial growth, especially when combined and left at unsafe temperatures. One common culprit is Staphylococcus aureus, often introduced through human contact during preparation. When potato salad sits above 41 degrees Fahrenheit for too long, it becomes an ideal environment for bacteria to multiply. Deviled eggs are a classic party snack, but they can also carry risks if they've been sitting out for a while. At a cookout, a tray left uncovered may look harmless, but it's worth being cautious. The main concern is salmonella, which can be present inside or on eggs without any visible signs. Contaminated eggs won't look or smell unusual, but they can still cause symptoms like fever, cramps, and severe gastrointestinal distress. In serious cases, medical treatment may be required, and complications can even become life-threatening.
I was dying earlier today, and then I died. Now I'm dead.
The risk becomes even greater in summer, when heat speeds up bacterial growth. If eggs are held at or above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, salmonella can multiply more easily, increasing the chance of contamination. Even prepackaged hard-boiled eggs aren't completely risk-free. In 2019, The Hill reported on a listeria outbreak that left at least one person dead and others ill, with the source linked to commercially produced hard-boiled eggs. The takeaway is simple: prepare deviled eggs at home when possible, and keep them properly refrigerated until serving. Tomatoes are widely enjoyed for their flavor and nutritional benefits, but they aren't without risk. A study from the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy found that from 1990 to 2007, raw tomatoes were associated with more than 79,000 food poisoning cases. Both whole and pre-cut tomatoes were involved in outbreaks, with salmonella identified as the most common cause. In several investigations, contamination was traced back to the source, including irrigation water from ponds used during farming. Once tomatoes are cut without proper cleaning, bacteria can be transferred inside, where conditions allow it to spread more easily. That's also why damaged or bruised tomatoes are considered higher risk, since contamination can enter and multiply throughout the fruit. Because raw tomatoes are used so often in salads, sandwiches, and burgers, it's not surprising they show up frequently in foodborne illness reports. Corn often gets labeled as an unhealthy vegetable, but that reputation isn't really accurate. It actually contains fiber, vitamins, and minerals, and is relatively low in fat. While it is higher in starch, which can affect blood sugar levels, it's still generally a nutritious food. Even so, it may not be the best choice at a backyard barbecue. Corn on the cob frequently appears on dental lists of foods to be cautious with. For people with fillings or sealants, the pressure from biting into it can risk loosening or damaging dental work. Those with braces may face even more trouble, and dentures can make eating it especially difficult. And even if no damage occurs, corn tends to leave behind bits that require thorough brushing and flossing afterward. Realistically, most people aren't carrying dental floss to a cookout. For that reason, it may be one item worth skipping in that setting. Not everyone is eager to slurp down an oyster, especially on a hot summer day. But even for those who are, it's worth pausing before diving in. Raw oysters can do more than just ruin a meal. They can potentially derail an entire season. That's because raw shellfish are associated with an infection called vibriosis, and it isn't rare. Each year, around 80,000 people in the US are affected. The illness can range from relatively mild stomach upset to far more severe complications, including bloodstream infections, skin damage, and in extreme cases, amputations.
We would recommend, to be cautious about eating raw oysters at any time, not just the summertime.
Thorough cooking can eliminate harmful contaminants, but raw oysters are best avoided, particularly during the warmer months from May through October. Rising water temperatures during this period create conditions where naturally occurring bacteria are more likely to thrive in the waters where oysters are harvested. Since oysters feed by continuously filtering large amounts of water through their shells, they can accumulate significant levels of these bacteria over time, sometimes reaching concentrations that pose a health risk. Here's some tough news for grill enthusiasts. Those heavily seared steaks may not be doing your health any favors. A 2010 study from Vanderbilt University found that frequent consumption of well-done meat can increase exposure to compounds known as heterocyclic aromatic amines. There's also another concern when it comes to grilling: polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These form when fat and juices from meat drip onto open flames and create smoke that rises back onto the food. Both HAAs and PAHs are processed by enzymes in the human body, but their breakdown products have been associated in research with DNA damage and an increased cancer risk. While scientists note that individual genetic differences can influence how strongly these compounds affect someone, the potential risks have led many to recommend moderation when it comes to high-heat charring. When Time magazine asked a panel of experts whether a hot dog was a sensible food choice in virtually any context, the response was a clear and emphatic no. There are several reasons behind that judgment. Hot dogs are heavily processed, and diets high in processed meats have been associated with a greater risk of conditions such as type 2 diabetes. They also tend to contain nitrates, which the body can convert into nitrites, compounds that have been linked in research to an increased risk of certain cancers. Even products labeled as having no added nitrites don't necessarily escape concern. While brands like Oscar Mayer may present them as a healthier option, organizations such as the World Health Organization have been more cautious about drawing that conclusion. And if that's not enough to make you think twice, there's also a quirky piece of research from the Dream and Nightmare Laboratory of Montreal. In a study exploring how foods might influence sleep and dreams, 12.5% of participants reportedly associated hot dogs with nightmares. Not exactly the most comforting endorsement. If you're trying to cool off quickly without loading up on fat or excess calories, snow cones or shaved ice might seem like a lighter choice. However, experts point out that they aren't necessarily much better than other desserts, and the reasons may be surprising. Dentists at Pediatric Dental Care warn that shaved ice can refreeze in uneven chunks, creating hidden hard pieces that may lead to chipped or cracked teeth. Then there's the sugar content to consider. The American Heart Association recommends keeping added sugar under 25 grams per day for women and 36 grams for men. According to Livestrong, snow cone syrup packs a significant amount of that limit, about 18 grams in just 2 ounces. And since most people don't stop at a single flavor, those numbers can climb quickly. Of course, enjoying a cold treat in the summer isn't a problem on its own, but snow cones aren't quite the healthier option they might appear to be. Part of what makes cookout foods so enjoyable is the toppings, but there's one in particular you may want to avoid. Sprouts may be packed with nutrients, but they're also known for their tendency to carry harmful bacteria. They've been linked to numerous foodborne illness outbreaks over the years, affecting thousands of people. And it isn't limited to just one variety. Alfalfa, clover, mung bean, and other types of sprouts can all potentially harbor pathogens such as salmonella or listeria. The issue comes down to how they're produced. Sprouts grow in warm, moist conditions, the same environment where bacteria thrives. If contamination is present on the seed at harvest, it can persist in a dormant state for months. Once sprouting begins, those bacteria can multiply rapidly, only to be consumed by people who assume they're making a healthy choice. Food waste is a major issue, and nobody enjoys throwing away perfectly good leftovers. Still, if you're leaving a cookout at a neighbor's place and they offer you a to-go container, it may be worth thinking twice before taking it. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention notes that in hot weather, food safety windows are surprisingly short. When temperatures climb above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, perishable food should not sit out for more than an hour. In cooler conditions, the limit extends to about 2 hours before bacteria can begin multiplying rapidly. There's also the question of preparation and handling. At outdoor settings like campgrounds or parks, maintaining strict hygiene can be difficult, increasing the risk of cross-contamination even in foods that seem harmless. In some cases, it may be safer to skip the leftovers rather than take the chance.